So again, this is just a brief video. I didn't want to go too deep into this, but there was a new resolution that was just adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. Here's the headline from Al Jazeera. They say UN General Assembly demands Russia end Ukraine war. So the UN has adopted a resolution demanding aid access and civilian protection in Ukraine, and criticizing Russia for creating a dire humanitarian situation. So almost 3/4 of the United Nations General Assembly has voted to demand aid access and civilian protection in Ukraine, and criticized Russia for creating a dire humanitarian situation after Moscow invaded its neighbor 1 month ago. It's the second time the 193-member General Assembly has overwhelmingly isolated Russia over what Moscow calls a special military operation that it says it aims to destroy Ukraine's military infrastructure. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has blasted Russia's absurd war. So the resolution was adopted on Thursday, drafted by Ukraine, and received 140 votes in favor, 5 votes against, Russia, Syria, North Korea, Eritrea, and Belarus, while 38 countries, including China, abstained. And that's exactly the point I wanted to make. So, again, here's the tally. Here's the result. You can see the countries that have abstained in yellow. Yes. So, who abstained? Because obviously the main takeaway here is that the overwhelming majority of the UN General Assembly condemned Russia. Okay, that's true, obviously. But what is the main point? What should be the main takeaway, really, when you look at this? It's the countries that abstained, because that says a lot more. So, who abstained? We have Algeria, Angola, Armenia. Down here, China, right? A nuclear power. What about over here? Oh, India, another nuclear power. Both countries with well over a billion people, right? So India has 1.3 billion. China in the same ballpark. Pakistan, another nuclear power and regional power. South Africa, one of the BRICS, right? So we have South Africa, we have India, we have China, and Brazil is one of the BRICS, but Brazil did vote to condemn Russia. However, as I showed you, all of the ambassadors of the BRICS, so the Brazilian ambassador, the Indian ambassador, Chinese ambassador, and South African ambassador met with Russia's foreign minister, Lavrov, in Moscow just yesterday, right? So my point here is the media keep telling us that the international community stands in solidarity against Russia. Is that true? Not really. Again, I point you to this, because this shows you that a vast majority of the planet actually don't stand against Russia. They are refusing to condemn Russia at the UN for the second time in a month, and they are continuing their trade with Russia. So, when they talk about international community, this is really what they mean. This is the international community. They mean North America, Western Europe, and Australia. That's their so-called international community. But when you look at what's happening in terms of bilateral relations, India just bought 3 million barrels of oil from Russia at a discount and in rubles. Now, granted, 3 million barrels of crude is nothing, because India consumes about, correct me if I'm wrong, 4 or 5 million in a day. So that's barely enough supply for one day. But that's not my point. It doesn't matter what the quantity was. The point is that despite the threat of sanctions from the United States directed towards India, that if you trade with Russia, if you buy oil from Russia, we'll sanction you, India said, screw it, and bought oil from Russia anyway. And not only that, but they did it in rupees and rubles. This is, again, a direct threat, against the hegemony, the monetary hegemony of the United States, the US dollar, which is the de facto reserve currency, and the fact that most oil is sold exclusively in US dollars is what gives the United States dollar its value. Now, that's one example. China refuses to sanction Russia, of course, India as well. And China signed a 30-year gas deal, granted, not after the war began, but just a few weeks before, and that's still on the table, whereas Nord Stream 2 has been already completed. And what did the Germans do at the behest of the Americans? They froze the pipeline. And so, in addition to that, Turkey gets a significant chunk of its gas from Russia. Turkey, however, is a NATO country. Turkey also bought weapons from Russia. In the Cold War, if you decided to buy weapons from Russia, that made you an enemy of the United States. Today, the rules are a little bit different, a little more lax. Nevertheless, that is significant, and also significant because India, about 60%, correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of India's weapons come from Russia. So Turkey refused to close the straits leading to the Black Sea, from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea, to let the Russian ships through, and only once they were through did then Turkey say, "Oh yeah, we'll close them now. You know, we'll invoke the Montreux Convention, which allows them to do that in time of war." And so that way, Turkey was treading a fine line, trying, to appease NATO while also not pissing off the Russians, because again, it needs gas from Russia. And Turkey has, of course, refrained from sanctioning Russia. Now, again, despite being a NATO country, what else? Well, we have Brazil. As I said, Brazil did vote to condemn Russia at the UN in the first UN resolution a few weeks ago, and of course in this one as well. But, like I said, the Brazil's ambassador was in Moscow just yesterday. So, in terms of the rising economic powers, the BRICS, that's remained unchanged. And I think it's really important to point these things out because they want to give you this they want to condition you into thinking that the international community is, one block that's united. It's just not. I'm sorry. And this is part of propaganda because the West is not the international community. Or the global North, we should say, right? The global North is the global North. And I think it's kind of insulting that these countries like the United States and Britain, claim to speak for India, claim to speak for South Africa, for China, for Pakistan. As Pakistan's prime minister said to the EU, when they asked, why aren't you condemning Russia? He said, we're not your slaves. So people need to understand that. Again, China, India, Pakistan, Iran, we're talking about 40% of the world's population. That almost half of the world's population. And obviously, they don't toe the same line as the West. So stop saying that the international community or the whole world is against the Russians. Regardless of what you think of the Russians, it's just an objective fact. It's a mathematical, quantifiable fact that the international community is not one homogeneous block. It's actually the global North claiming to speak for everyone else, and a large chunk, a significant chunk, over a third of the world's population, almost half the world's population, is not in alignment with what the West is doing. So you cannot say that the whole world is united. It's just plain wrong. It's objectively wrong. And so I think this is very significant because last time, I can tell you, Iraq also abstained. This time they voted to condemn Russia, or if you want to view it the other way, call for aid and an end to the war in Ukraine. But Iran has, of course, refrained during both votes, during both General Assembly resolutions to condemn Russia. And of course, Iran and Russia have very close ties. And I expect their economic cooperation to increase all the more, not in terms of oil, because they're actually both major oil producers. They don't need to, they export oil. We've seen, for example, the Mir system, Russia's payment system. There are talks to link Iran to Mir, Venezuela to link that to Mir. So I think it's very, very significant. And Venezuela, if you notice, were not present. It's black. But I think they would have abstained. Maduro has come out as a staunch supporter of Putin. And again, I don't like seeing Putin it's Russia. Russia is a country, the biggest country on earth. We should respect the fact that it's not one individual, because the media want us to condition us into thinking that, you know, it's one like totalitarian state and it's a cult of personality and it's just one man who rules everything. I'm sorry, it's not the truth. It's just not true. My point is that Maduro supports Russia and recognizes that it's NATO aggression that led to the current situation. So in any case, I just wanted to make this quick, this quick video and just show you again that when they say international community is united against Russia, it's not true. I'm sorry. Here's again a picture to prove my point. As I told you, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov in Moscow meeting with all the ambassadors of the BRICS. Right there, just yesterday. That doesn't look like the world shunning or isolating Russia. It just doesn't.